Hey everybody, and welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at two really interesting belief systems, Buddhism and Hinduism.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. We'll be uncovering how these beliefs came about and what they're all about. And we'll see how they affect people's lives even today. I mean, just imagine we're talking about ideas that have been around for centuries.
Okay, so let's imagine two paths leading toward happiness and living a good life. The first path we'll look at is Buddhism. Now, this path started with a prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who lived in India a long time ago. He had palaces and fancy clothes and all the delicious food you could imagine, but he just wasn't happy.
Right, he wasn't. Siddhartha saw that even with all this wealth, people were still suffering. So he decided to give up all these riches and search for answers. Can you believe that? Giving up luxury to try and understand why life is so hard?
I know, right? It's a pretty wild story. So after traveling and thinking for a long time, Siddhartha reached a special understanding called enlightenment. From then on, he became known as the Buddha. He figured out some key truths about life that became the foundation of Buddhism.
And these truths are called the Four Noble Truths. They're all about understanding why we experience suffering and how to get past it. It's like a doctor figuring out why we're sick and then helping us get better.
I see. So it's not just about feeling sad. It's about understanding the deeper reasons for our struggles. And what I find so fascinating is that Buddhism offers a guide to deal with this suffering. The Eightfold Path.
Exactly. It's like a map with 8 directions that lead us to a happier and more peaceful life. These directions cover things like being kind, speaking truthfully, and being present in the moment. And Buddhism didn't stay a personal journey for the Buddha. It spread all over thanks to a powerful emperor named Ashoka.
Oh yeah, Emperor Ashoka. He loved Buddhism and made sure to share its teachings throughout his kingdom. So Buddhism is about understanding suffering, finding peace within, and living a good life guided by kindness and wisdom. Let's switch gears now to our second path, Hinduism.
Okay, Hinduism is very different from Buddhism because it wasn't started by one person. It's more like this puzzle where new pieces were added over thousands of years in India.
So it's a belief system that just grew and changed over time, with lots of different stories and teachings.
Yeah, exactly. And at the very heart of Hinduism is Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate source of everything, like the energy that makes up the entire universe.
Okay, now that's just mind-blowing. And there are these epic stories in Hinduism, like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. They're like ancient myths and legends, full of gods and heroes and exciting adventures.
Yeah, they're amazing stories, and they teach about good and evil, duty, destiny, all that kind of stuff. Now, Hinduism also has this concept called dharma, which is all about fulfilling your purpose in life, doing what you're supposed to do, being a good person.
So it's like figuring out your role and playing it well. One thing that comes to mind about Hinduism is the caste system.
Yes, the caste system has been a part of Hindu society for a very long time. It divides people into different groups based on family and jobs.
So it's like a hierarchy where some groups are seen as more important. And that's caused a lot of problems, hasn't it?
Yes, definitely. It's led to a lot of discrimination and inequality. It's a very complex issue that's still being debated today.
So while the caste system is part of Hinduism's history, it's really important to remember that a lot of people are working hard to overcome the negative effects it's had.
That's right. And another interesting thing is that Hinduism has lots of gods and goddesses who all represent different aspects of Brahman.
So they're like different parts of the same big power.
Exactly. So we've seen how Buddhism started with a prince on a quest for answers, while Hinduism evolved over centuries in India.
We've also learned about some of their key ideas. Buddhism, with its focus on overcoming suffering, and Hinduism with its Brahman and this idea of fulfilling your dharma. We've also seen some of the complexities in their history and social structures.
Okay, so now that we have a bit of an understanding of these two paths, let's see where they connect and where they diverge. Are you ready to compare?
Okay, so where do they overlap? I know we talked about reincarnation, that idea about being reborn after you die. Do they both believe in that?
Yeah, they do. Both Buddhism and Hinduism see life as a journey with many different stops. But think of it this way. They both believe in the journey, but their destinations are different.
Oh, okay. What do you mean by different destinations?
Well, in Buddhism, the goal is to escape the whole cycle of reincarnation. It's like reaching the other side of a river, a place called nirvana, where there is peace and no more suffering.
So it's like you reach a point where you don't have to be reborn anymore.
Right. And Buddhists believe that to reach nirvana, you have to let go of all the things you want, all your attachments to this world.
That makes sense. What about in Hinduism? What's the final destination?
In Hinduism, the goal is to be at one with Brahman, the ultimate reality. It's not about escaping the cycle, but understanding that you are already a part of something much, much bigger. And to get to this state of oneness, Hindus focus on doing their duty in life, their dharma, and accumulating good karma, kind of like getting points for good actions.
So both believe in reincarnation, but have different ideas about where it all leads. What other differences are there?
Well, another big difference is in how they approach deities or gods. Buddhism doesn't have a god in the way we usually think of it. Hinduism, on the other hand, has lots and lots of gods and goddesses.
That's right. Buddhists focus on following the Buddha's teachings and reaching enlightenment, while Hindus worship lots of deities who are all part of Brahman. It's amazing how both belief systems have these rich and diverse ways of understanding the universe and where we fit in.
I agree. Okay, so let's look at how Buddhism and Hinduism show up in everyday life. How do these beliefs shape what people do? Well, Buddhists might meditate, being mindful of their thoughts and feelings, and they try to be compassionate in how they interact with others. Some Buddhists are even vegetarian because they want to avoid harming animals.
So they're bringing those core Buddhist ideas into their lives.
Yeah, it's about actually living it, not just believing it. Hindus, for example, might perform rituals like puja, where they offer prayers and gifts to their deities.
I've seen pictures of these beautiful altars people have in their homes with statues of gods and goddesses.
Right. Those are special places for Hindus to pray. Hindus might also go to temples, take part in festivals, and fast on certain days.
So they're really weaving their beliefs into their daily routines.
Yeah. And both Buddhism and Hinduism place a lot of importance on being ethical, on being a good person and doing the right thing.
So it's not just about rituals, it's also about how you treat others and how you live your life.
Exactly. Buddhists try to live by 5 rules called the 5 precepts. Things like not harming others, not stealing, and being honest.
And Hindus have their own ethical guidelines too, right? Like the idea of ahimsa, which is about not being violent.
Yes, ahimsa is really important in Hinduism, and it's not just about physical violence. It's about being kind and compassionate in your thoughts, words, and actions.
So both encourage people to be good and to make the world a better place.
Yes. And those values go beyond just how you act. It includes taking care of others and caring for the environment.
So it's like your spirituality isn't just for you, it's about having a positive impact on the world.
Absolutely. Buddhism and Hinduism both teach that our actions affect everyone, not just ourselves. We're all interconnected.
Now, that's something to think about. Before we get to our last part, can you tell us more about the impact these two religions have had on history? They've been around for a long time, so they must left their mark on the world, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Buddhism spread far and wide, thanks in part to Emperor Ashoka, and it's influenced art, architecture, and even how governments worked.
Wow, it's amazing how one man's quest to understand himself could have such a huge impact.
I know. And Hinduism is so tied to Indian culture that it's shaped the social structure of India, the arts, traditions, for thousands of years. And both religions have faced challenges and changed over time, adapting to new situations.
Like different schools of thought popping up within Buddhism and reform movements within Hinduism that were against social inequality.
Right. It shows that even really old belief systems can be dynamic and change to meet the needs of their followers.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground so far. I guess what I'm wondering now is, how can these ancient beliefs be helpful to us in our modern lives?
That's a really great question. We've looked at their history, their core ideas, even some of the tough parts, but what does it all really mean for us today? Well, mindfulness is a big one in Buddhism. It's about being present in this moment without judging your thoughts. It can really help with stress and help you focus better.
That sounds super helpful, especially now when everyone is so busy and distracted.
Right. And compassion is another big one in both Buddhism and Hinduism. It's about understanding and caring for others, which can make your relationships so much stronger. As we finish up, just remember this. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep an open mind. You never know what kind of wisdom you'll find along the way.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been amazing to learn so much about Buddhism and Hinduism.
Until next time, keep searching, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the world of ideas.